Welcome to the Model Car Hobby Podcast with your host, Luka C. Now here he is, Luka C. Well, hello, my fellow car modelers. How are you doing today? Welcome back to another episode of the Model Car Hobby Podcast. I have got a really special guest, special to me, that this is going to be a little bit different a podcast, but this is somebody that I want you all to meet and know about. And some of you may know from the Facebooks, you might recognize the name, but I have my very longtime friend, Scotty Williams here.
Hello.
But I'll tell you what it is about Scotty. Scotty, we go way back. He's a very special friend of mine from when I lived back in Virginia. He got me involved in some things that we're going to talk about, but I met him through my other friends when I got moved out there, through the modeling and model clubs. And it also turns out that he has always been all his life very involved in motorsports, in NASCAR, and he went ahead and made a career in NASCAR up to fairly recently, and we're going to talk about all that. But he's always been modeling, and we got back together talking a lot and talking about the stuff. But what's great, what's special to me about my friend Scotty here is, hey Scotty, check this out. I still got it. So I got my grungy pit crew hat
from Ronnie Newman Racing, the Magic City Springfield.
So when I first got out to Virginia, Scotty got me on my first NASCAR late model team. He was working with a guy by the name of Ronnie Newman. There was two cars that they were running at that year, and Curtis Turner Jr. was the other driver. This was that night, actually, I came up to you, my first race I came to. I think this was the New River Valley Speedway program. And right there. Let's see if I can see. Do we see that? That's the 92.
That's the 92.
Curtis' car, Ronnie's?
Ronnie actually ran the 92 that year, and
Right.
Curtis ran the 82.
Right, yeah. And so that was fun. And then it was towards the end of the 92 season, and I got on. It was my first time I ever got involved, because I was all from dirt track racing, and you guys gave me this hat and let me be in the crew for a little while, and I learned a lot of stuff from you, because the thing that we were both interested in, you're a suspension guy, and that's my thing, is the chassis setup and all that stuff, and we want to talk about all this. Scotty went off to get a career in NASCAR all the way up to, he was the other hat. This was a gift from him back in the days. He was the suspension specialist at Cullick Racing up till 22. Was 22 your last
22.
season? Yeah.
Yes,
so,
well, I was there for a little bit in 22 and then left.
Yeah, but both of us share a really deep love for the machines, for the car, especially from the 80s. We're really the 80s cars. And him and I will, we talked about 6 hours yesterday on the phone.
Yes,
just
sir.
About race cars. We just yak about chassis setups and race cars and stuff, and it's just a lot of fun. So been wanting to bring him on. I'm so glad, Scotty, that you finally were able to get on here with us. And I'm going to let Scotty take over a little bit. I want him to tell his story about his modeling and racing and everything to you all. And, we're going to chit-chat about this stuff, because he's got some neat stuff to share with everybody. So, Scotty, when did you start building model cars? What was your drive, and what did you like to build?
So I had built my dad had helped me build some, street rods, or however you say it, model cars like that. And I'll tell you, my first NASCAR kit, got it at Super X Drugstore. It was the Wrangler Thunderbird that Dale Earnhardt drove.
Yeah.
And that would have been around 1984. I know them kits had been out a little bit before that, but I'd seen one, got it, kind of built it and painted it by the box, which, I learned later on the black chassis was not accurate for a Bud Moore car. but that's okay. But I wanted to try to build it the way the box showed.
Yeah, we would follow
And
where the
and
box was.
and it's funny because me and you've talked about that. I call it those hand painted box art that Monogram done in the '80s. I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
that is my all time favorite. I love that. I thought that was
love
the
those.
best model car box they could have ever done. I
Yeah,
have
like
two
our
complete
background
sets.
here.
Yes, sir. I have two
Yeah,
complete sets of those.
yeah, those were
I see the
great.
Budweiser Thunderbird. That is just one, the 711 Mustang, and then
Yeah,
just all the cool stuff that they do. I see Don Berdone's car up there in the corner. I
yeah.
actually looked last night. I have one of them unopened. So
Oh, you do? Yeah, yeah, that
yes,
boxer. There was a artist by the name of David Lord. He passed away about 5 or 6 years ago, and he was just that to me. That's my favorite box art. It was just I remember when those were on the shelves, and I would go to the hobby shop and just stare at them, trying to
right. I
pick
mean,
one out.
yeah,
And
and I liked it because in a lot of them, they had other NASCAR cars in the scene with them. The
yeah,
primary kit would be the kind of the big of it, but behind it, you could see other people that they were racing. It reminds me of a Sam Bass painting, is what they remind me
yeah,
of now.
yeah. And later on, remember when the Monogram went to putting someone's built version. They did for the box art for a while. Yeah, okay. But remember, they started wanting to go back to this illustration. They brought Sam Bass, which he was in the late '90s. He was like the hot motorsports illustrator. Not taking anything away from Sam, but I think David Lord's artwork was way better.
Right. And I don't really know David Lord's background, but Sam did a lot of NASCAR stuff.
Yeah. Well, he
And I
he
think
he
David Lord just did it in general for Monogram. Is
Yeah,
that correct?
David Lord, he did for magazine stuff. He came from like I think he actually was more involved with Indy, like the museum or for Indianapolis, but he did just all sorts of motorsports illustrations for magazines and anything else, and that's where he came about. But yes, like Sam Bass, he was known for basically the renditions of what the new sponsorship artwork would be on the race cars. It would always be a
Right.
Sam Bass illustration when they'd show this is what the cars possibly could be next year.
Yeah, because I know one of his that I always think of is the Wild Slide or Wild Slide, the one of
Yeah.
Dale Earnhardt in the
Oh
Wrangler car.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that was
Passing the
one
grass.
passing. Yeah, I think that was, to me, that was probably his best box artwork. But
Yeah.
the David Lord stuff, I mean, my gosh, I'm kind of looking up at my. I mean, I don't know that I could sit there and tell you that I'd really have to sit down and look at those kits and just before I could tell you what I thought was his. I mean, if you asked me, all of his was. I
Yeah,
mean,
they were so cool. And even like the on the side, like you were saying, that Wrangler Thunderbird you built, they still would have someone build the model and use it on the side of the box, and you would, it was so cool seeing the body off, even though
right.
it's box stock. Oh my goodness, those chassis were so fantastic in those early all the monogram NASCAR race car kits. And that
Well, that was the other thing, that I kind of when I first built one. I didn't the way a lot of the pieces glue together and the way the chassis is truly built. You see that it's a plastic model, and
yeah.
you start realizing, well, me and you've talked about this. The cross member, truck arms, and rear
Oh,
end. A lot of people paint that as one piece. The X part of that is actually welded to the chassis and should be the same color as the chassis.
right.
And and I'll be honest with you, when I first started building them, I didn't know that. And then the more in detailed I got into it, I was like, oh, well, this is welded. This is actually part of the frame. It doesn't weld on the real thing like it glues onto this model kit.
Yeah, exactly. It's integrated into the build on the surface plate on the jig before the
Yeah,
floor is laid down.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I mean, and that's that was one of the things that I really when I got into racing and got to see the full frame cars. The very first time I ever went to a racetrack and got to see a race was August 18th, 1984. I still know, I know that date, and there's a reason I know that date. My dad, my parents were kind of going through a separation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of funny because one of the jokes I've always made is my parents separated in 1984 and didn't divorce till 94, and I got a baby brother out of it in one of their get backs
Yeah.
together. But my dad come home one afternoon and he said, "Hey, Saturday afternoon," he said, "You want to go over to Franklin County Speedway to the race?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'd never been to a race. I'd seen them on TV."
Yeah.
And he was a big Fred Lorenzen fan as a kid.
Your father raced though. He had a stock car, didn't he?
No, he just he kind of he worked on some drag cars.
Oh, okay.
He did. My dad did paint and body work for multiple places in Roanoke, and he had helped with some drag cars quite a bit. The reason he talked about going to Franklin County that day, his shop foreman and a good friend of his, Billy Newman, which is actually Ronnie Newman's older brother,
Right.
they had all built a what they called family class car. It's kind of funny because Ronnie started out in that thing. They had a little discrepancy about something. Clarence Landing, which was my dad's shop foreman, they decided to take Ronnie out of it, and he put his son Johnny Landing in it. Clarence and them were from North Carolina. They were big UNC fans. When they first built the car, it was primered. And it was quite not very pretty. So one week they asked my dad would he paint it Carolina blue. So
Mm.
one evening my dad painted the car Carolina blue, and I never will forget because I really got to see something the first time, and I didn't know what I was seeing till till now. At that time, but they had painted it. And Saturday morning there was a guy that was hand lettering the numbers on the car.
Oh boy.
And I mean, we're a few hours away from going to the racetrack, and I'm getting to stand there and watch this sign painter. Which there was a gentleman that my mom's sister dated by the name of Lenny Hayes, and I mean, he was a sign painter. Some of the stuff that he done, he always painted stuff for like our family members.
Mm-hmm.
And Lenny he took a couple pieces of wood, like a 2x4 and say a 2x6 or a 2x8. He cut them out in the shape of a building, and he painted a storefront on them for my then model trains.
Oh, okay.
And I still have those to this day.
Oh, wow.
But I had never got to watch Lenny actually do the work. He always did it, brought it to whoever he was giving it to, and you received it. So for the first time to get to stand there and watch a sign painter letter a race car was very fascinating to me. And then
Oh,
and
yeah.
then throughout, the on into the 80s and a little bit up into the 90s, there was multiple people that still done it. Shaky J. We always refer to Shaky J. I don't even know what Jay's last name was. Everybody just always called him Shaky J. And then Larry Epperly, which I know you met Big Larry when
Yeah,
when
the
you were up there living in
slot car,
Radford. Slot cars, yes, sir.
slot car track. Yeah.
Yes, sir. And I met Big Larry before the slot car track because he lettered quite a. He was really good friends with my neighbor Bobby Harmon, which had a race car, and that's how I got to meet Big Larry and got to know him very well.
He
Um,
was he lettered he lettered most of the cars up at New River Valley Speedway.
yeah, yes, he did. I mean, he was still. I know about every one of Bobby's race cars he hand lettered, and
Yeah.
he even did a few of my slot cars. Well, he
Yeah,
did a lot of my slot
he
cars.
would do slot cars. He'd sell them at the slot car track because we when he opened up that slot car track, it was like it was during the off season. All of us that I don't know if you ever went over there, but a lot of the guys that lived in the area that were in the pit crews and stuff would go there, and we would race slot cars there, and everybody would make because he would paint everybody's car that he actually lettered.
Yes,
And the
yes.
one car that I remember, which I thought was a beautiful car, beautiful way he did the number and everything. We talked about. I messed his name up. Was it Cromer?
Wilton Cromer, right?
Wilton Cromer.
Cromer. I think I might be saying. I'm pretty sure it's Cromer.
Yeah, Wilton Cromer. He had such a. I remember his car black, and it was like uh, a bluish and maybe some pink in there. But he lettered Wilton's car, and
Yes.
I remember he had the first time before I saw his real car. I was at Wilkesboro when I first met him and saw his car. I saw the slot car first.
Right.
But yeah, he was an amazing sign painter. Sign painting is I wish I could do it. I watch videos of that stuff. It's fascinating.
I mean, the way those people just pick the brush up and just start, there's even some of the historic rail stuff that I've been involved in. There's still people that do a lot of hand lettering on the locomotives and the cars, and it's just so interesting to watch somebody just pick a brush up and just make it flow like water. I mean,
oh yeah, flow, and they can do it fast.
Right. My dad came home and he said, we'll go over there. We went over. They was finishing up lettering the car. We went over and I remember there was that night, the late model field, they had a big pileup in turns 3 and 4.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember somebody had blown a motor. And I mean, it piled cars up everywhere. Leaders, I mean, it was a big wreck. Remember people trying to help fix cars, get cars off the racetrack. I remember the racetrack was just slick as all could be because it was oil everywhere. And later on, it was kind of funny because I was helping some guys back in the end of '94, and we were talking one night, and I made mention about that being my first race and the big wreck, in turns 3 and 4. One of the guys it was Clay Hyberger I was working with on the 75 car with Ray Young at the end of '94. And Clay goes, "Do you know what caused that wreck?" And I'm like, "No." I said, "I know somebody blowed up an engine." And he got to telling me that a certain car that he was working on at that time, they had some funnied up rods in that thing, and it blowed a rod. It throwed a rod.
Yeah.
And it blowed the motor up, and that's what oiled the whole track down because some of them cars back then were wet something, some of them were dry something. I mean, it was kind of interesting to find out, about 10 years later what actually caused that wreck. Because all I knew was somebody blew the motor and piled up the field. But it was really neat to kind of get a little history lesson there. And that's the reason that date and that night is always kind of there was an event that night that kind of sticks out in my head to always remember my first race. And I remember we went the rest of the season, and Johnny was doing better and better. And I mean, he got to where he finished second there a bunch of weeks in a row. And it's like a win's just around the corner. And finally, the last race over there, we did win. And I thought about this a few years ago when Kevin Harvick put Keelan in his car and rode him around the racetrack when he won. We piled up in that thing like we were going to a party for the victory lap. I mean, the car didn't have no back wind in it. It was like a 70, 72, 73 Camaro. So, there was people setting up in the back package tray, hanging out the passenger side window. And it was just really cool, to come back around there and get your picture tucked in victory lane. And that night I was like, wow, this is really cool. And couldn't wait for the next season. They would let me clean up stuff at the shop. I never really got to work on anything that first year. But I mean, I was an 11-year-old kid.
Oh,
so
man.
They're not going to let you build an engine.
No.
But there was good people there. A lot of times Billy would pull the heads off and go through them, and I got to watch him, put heads on and learn a lot about torque and stuff like that, and how he a couple times I know he did go through the whole motor, and I got to watch that and got to see how a a small block Chevy was assembled. I know one of the first things I was really fascinated by was had a distributor that didn't, that you drop down in it and put a drill on it so you could spin the oil pump over and,
Oh,
and
yeah.
make sure you had everything pre-oiled. I thought stuff like that was really cool. The torquing the head bolts in the sequence, starting from the middle out, and even putting the intake on. He believed in starting from the middle out just so you didn't try to buckle it or anything like that.
Right.
And that's stuff that even though I was young like that, it stuck with me through the years about when you're putting things together to think about a tightening sequence or a torque sequence or however you're going to do it. But I just thought this racing thing is really, really cool. I started bugging my dad about a go-kart. He they said they would buy me one. They said they were going to get me one for my birthday in '85. And I kept kind of bugging them about it because I was like, if you're going to get it, have y'all got it? And it's a birthday present, and we're not telling you. And I'm like, I don't think they're getting me this go-kart that I want. I started kind of bugging them about, getting a paper route and making money, and they didn't want me to do that. So, it's like, so then it come time, birthday was in August. All of a sudden that, that Saturday or whatever it was we were going to celebrate, come outside and there sets a go-kart. So they did get the go-kart.
Nice.
Along about that time, my mom got pregnant with Daniel in May, and they were starting to look for another house. Wasn't 100% sure whether they were having a boy or a girl, and we were only living in a 2-bedroom house. My dad was wanting to get a house with a garage because he was wanting to do some paint and body work on the side. He was in partners with another guy doing it at night, but he knew he could do better if he had his own.
Right.
And, he was having to split the profits. They found a house with a. It's kind of funny. About 2 weeks after having the go-kart and riding it in the backyard, one Saturday morning, he got up and the neighbors was washing the red dirt off the side of their house. So, I was making quite a dust storm in the backyard and riding the go-kart. And it's really funny. They bought that house in November of '85, and it had a 2-car garage with it. But beside it, it had a lot that went with the house.
Mm.
And I remember down in one corner of it, there was a strawberry patch. And Mama said, well, you can ride the go-kart in there, but you stay out of that strawberry patch. I think we only run through that 3 or 4 times. But the lot, it's really funny. The lot kind of tapered off over in one corner. And it really made it kind of tough to ride in it. So I come home from school one day, and there's this big mound of dirt dumped down in one end of the lot. My dad had borrowed a backhoe from Davis H. Elliott, where he worked and did paint and body work. He come home and he built Darlington. I'm gonna refer to it as Darlington, and kind of it had a dog leg. In that, when the funny thing was the way our driveway was concreted and the way the lot kind of stepped down, it was like a concrete wall on what we called the backstretch. Oh. So he took that dirt and he filled in down in what was turns 1 and 2 and made it banked and made the lot. One end of it was flat as a pancake. It was like Bowman Gray in one end, or Martinsville, and the other end was like racing at Darlington.
Oh my goodness.
And then it had a little dog leg in it. He kind of got that the way he wanted it. I had my go-kart, and he decided that he went and bought another go-kart for him. So now we had 2 go-karts.
Oh boy.
And he decided that the track needed walls. So he went to work and started gathering up cross arms for power line poles, the used ones that they took down.
Right.
He got them. He stacked them 3 high, put pins in them, took a cable and connected them all around so they wouldn't fall over. And we had wooden walls around 3/4 of our go-kart track. The go-kart track was just cool as could be. And, we had a lot of fierce battles on that.
I bet.
I started helping Ronnie in '88, and we still had the go-kart track, and that's when I really kind of got into learning a whole lot about the race cars.
Yeah.
Because he had a late model car. It was, it was a fab chassis with a stock clip. But it's kind of funny because I think about, one of the things, and me and you had talked about this, was in the spring of '86, we went to Martinsville, and I got to see my first cup race. We went over on a Sunday morning, got tickets in the unreserved section. Had to sit down low, coming off of turn two, kind of on the back straightaway. And I mean, the rubber and the other part was the people throwing the beer cans over your head down to the bottom. I mean, but you know what? I mean, I wouldn't have traded it for a farm in Georgia.
That was back when it was like it was just concrete seats.
Right, concrete seats,
Yeah.
no metal. The only thing I do remember asking my dad, I was like, why can't we get tickets over there under that shed? Because they had that pavilion or whatever. And he said,
Right.
first time he went there in '64, he said they sat under that thing. He said he couldn't hear for 2 days because them cars roared. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
when them old big block Fords and stuff went by, he said I couldn't hear for 2 days after that. So he said, no, we won't. But it was funny because he asked me, he said, do you want to come back in the fall and watch this race again, see this race again? I was like, oh, yeah. Yeah.
You were hooked.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I wanted to see that again. And he got to noticing, at the time, the press boxes were down there in turns 1 and 2.
Yeah.
And the way the sun come up and the press boxes blocked it, which there was no seats in 3 and 4 at that time. It was just the big old scoreboard. But he said, I'm going to see if we can't get some reserved tickets over there. He said, he done picked out an area, and that way the sun wouldn't be, beating on us because the press boxes kind of blocked it. He was looking for the shaded area, especially if you're going to sit outside like that all day. And it was really interesting. That fall, we went back and we went to see qualifying on Friday. Some friends of his said, hey, that's kind of what you need to do. Y'all need to go see qualifying on Friday, and then go back Sunday and watch the race. And we did. And me and you've talked about this part, and this gets into the model car part of it because, at this time now, I'm really starting to build some model cars, and I'm starting to, learn a little more about them. One of the things I never will forget in that spring race, we went down in the pits afterwards.
Oh.
And, because if you waited around, they would open the gate and they would let you in there. First thing I remember was walking across that racetrack and asking my daddy, I said, why is it so sticky? And he said, that's because all the rubber they lay down.
Mm-hmm.
And it was. I mean, because, once again, there was no tunnel. You had to cross over the racetrack.
It was right over there out of turn 4.
Yeah, just the same gate it is now, but that was the only way, to get in, basically in and out of the racetrack, except for the little crossover gate at the flagstick.
If people are fans of watching The Last American Hero, because that's how that track was then too.
Right.
I even remember when I went there in the early '90s, it still kind of was like that. That wasn't. It was right before that. They started building everything. I remember.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, it's weird because the first time I went there in 1988 in the fall to help Ronnie Newman, they still had the rail for pit wall.
Yeah.
And I never.
Hey, just here's something. Check this out. That was that the time that you guys had Dale Earnhardt drive the car?
No. That would have been the next season. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. There's Ronnie in the middle. Of course, you wearing this hat right here I got.
Right.
And I think a few people might know who that guy over there.
Yeah, he went on to be somebody.
He did. I heard about him.
That was a very interesting night. And I still remember I had helped Ronnie for a year there, and then we that over that winter, that's when I really got to learning about the cars. We started going every year there for, I don't know, it was probably the last one I went to was probably in 90 or 91. I started learning about there would be show cars over there in town. my dad, he wanted to go over there. We wanted to get to the track and watch qualifying and practice too. But you could take the 220, the bypass as I call it, and not go through Martinsville. But I wanted to go through Martinsville because there would be people over there with show cars, at different places. And I wanted to stop and look at those cars. I wanted to see what color things were from my model cars. And me and you've talked about, it's different pieces on there that you get to looking at, and you find out, well, what color that's really supposed to be, or how that's made, or what that does. That was the thing that I wanted to see. And I mean, my dad, he would be so, he'd be like, just want to get over there to the track, and I don't want to go through town. Now that I have lived over in this area, and I'm like, going through town, going to bypass, it's definitely going better to go to the bypass, especially when I drove to Welcome every day. It was on the bypass, no stoplights until you basically got back off the bypass. So, but I was kind of getting to see about the cars and learn more about them in that time and see how the chassis were built. But then when I did start helping Ronnie Newman in '88 and got to see a lot about how those cars were built. Got to see how bad they could get wrecked sometimes and tore up.
Yeah.
Did finally get to go to Martinsville. I never will forget this. In the spring of '87, we went to Martinsville. Well, once again, Bobby Harmon, neighbor, he had some race cars. He asked my dad, he said, y'all want to go over and watch the triple header at Martinsville? And my dad was like, yeah, that'd be pretty cool. He said, well, Bobby said, well, here's the thing. He said, do you want to see the people race that we see at like Franklin County, or do you want to see the big guys? He said, because we're going to see the people we know. They're going to have to run the heat races on Saturday and not make it. He said, if, depending on, so we went on Saturday because, at that time there was 6 heat races, 2 Busch, 2 modified, and 2 late model. And the heat races was very interesting to see. And then, on Sunday they would have the actual race.
This wasn't a cup weekend. This is when they would run
the
lower divisions. That's like the one also at North Wilkesboro that I went with George Spangler with.
Yes, that was
it was modifieds and late models. And
at the time they called them the double header. Then they were the triple header. They were
okay. I know what
think
you're talking about.
The Cardinal and the Dogwood or something. Cardinal 500.
That was always a neat thing that NASCAR did for the Charger divisions that they used to call them back then, for the lower divisions. And I just remember that we would go to those and they would treat us like they treated the Cup guys. It was like an opportunity to like let us feel a little important, I guess.
Well, the first thing that I remember about going to Martinsville that weekend was you got free Unocal gas.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, they kind of put a limit on that because all the late model guys figured out they were getting free gas, and they would come empty.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And at the time, there was 80 to 90 of those cars showing up. So, you do that 22 times, that's a lot of free fuel.
That's a lot of free fuel.
Yeah, so they got to where they were putting a limit on it. I think they would only give us like 10 or 15 gallons a weekend. Okay. Yeah, and I think you got more if you made the race, but as far as your practice and all that, you were limited to what you got for that weekend. But
right, yeah.
But it was really interesting to go there, see that race, from the fans, and then just a little over a year later, getting to go there as a competitor. And I remember all them modifieds being there and all them Busch cars, because that was the race that decided the championship for the tour, the modified touring division, and for the Busch series at that time. If you were there on Sunday, you got to see those 2 champions crowned at the racetrack.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, we only made it one time with Ronnie. In the whole from 88 to 94 that I helped him. But we would usually go back over on Sunday because we had a pass to get in anyway.
Yeah.
And hang around and watch the races and,
Yeah, that's what I did at Wilkesboro.
Right. It makes sense. You got a free pass. Why not go back? And plus, you got to see what happened in the race. It kind of if you ever did make one of the shows, you'd have an idea what was going on.
Yeah, yeah, because we blew up. So, and George didn't want to go. We were going to go to the shop and put a new engine, go all the way back to Floyd from North Wilkesboro, put an engine in the car, and then go back. And he, on the way back home, he's like, I don't feel like doing it.
Wilkesboro always had that big race, and I never got to go to that one.
I walked up at Wilkesboro, when I was over in the Sweeney Brothers pit, which, for those of you who don't know, the Sweeney Brothers, they were backed by Richard Childress Racing, and the car was a Good Wrench number 3, and it was Mike Dillon driving.
Right. Richard Childress. It's funny because I remember being at Franklin County racing one Saturday towards the end of the season, and Bruce and Barry brought Mike Dillon over there and walked him around and introduced him to people.
Oh, yeah.
And they kept, they were like, this is Richard Childress' son-in-law. He's going to be racing for us next year. We're going to run full time. And next thing you know, he's running a Busch car. And
yeah, he was good in late. I mean, he was running late model regularly with the Sweeneys when I was there at New River Valley Speedway. I never met him, I just knew some of his crew members and stuff. And I remember going up, at that race, though, the one thing, back to what I was saying about Wilkesboro, is I just had to go up there and put my foot up on the wall where Junior Johnson once stood. How Junior would just put his foot on the wall and watch, him figuring and watching. And it was just like, man, all that NASCAR history, just, I'm at North Wilkesboro putting my foot up on the pit wall. How many people get to do that? So that was fun.
Well, that's why when I was talking about going to Martinsville in '88 and that old rail was there, I was like, I'm gonna put my foot up on the rail like Junior does, and just
you got to do like Junior, man.
Yeah, the cool pictures you see of that, it's like, that's.
Yeah, that was the race that you were going to, though. That was where Richie Evans got killed.
Yes, it was.
Were you at that? Was when was
no.
that? No,
that was 85.
85.
That was 85.
That was.
It's funny. I can still remember a schoolmate of mine, and his stepdad drove the pace car in the wrecker at Franklin County.
Okay.
And he would go down to Martinsville. He would take his wrecker and go down to Martinsville and help with cleanup down there. And I remember Timmy coming back and telling me that Richie Evans got killed at Martinsville. And at the time, I really didn't know enough about who he was. I'm really sad that I never got to see Richie race.
Yeah, really. That would
because I've there's a book about him, and I've read the book, and I've studied a lot about him now, and to know how great of a champion he was, and how great he was in racing, it really intrigues me to see that somebody can work on something and run that good and have that good of success in a touring series for so long like he did. Plus when you find out, he built his own cars.
Yeah.
There was a lot of innovation to that guy from what I can tell.
Definitely. He brought a lot of stuff, innovation into modified.
Right.
Who knows how far that would have gone. I don't know if he would have ever gone into the bigger leagues of NASCAR, but he ruled NASCAR modified, that's for sure.
Last year at the opening race at South Boston, the modifieds were there, the Southern Tour, and happened to look over there, and I was like, holy cow, there's a Richie Evans Pinto. So they had a little meet and greet, and I went over and started looking at it. And, I took some good pictures of it because I thought, man, this thing. So I sent them to Mark Agee. I was like, hey, I said, man, this thing's at South Boston. I said, and he said, yeah, he said, that's the car that Ray Everham has.
Is that the one that's in, they sometimes put it in the NASCAR museum in Charlotte?
I think so, yeah. And it was just really neat to look at that car once again, to get to stand, a foot away from that car and look and see how things was built on it was really, intriguing to me to see. That's one of the things about those cars that really did it was the creativeness in building. And the the stock cars, they're, me and you've talked about this. When you look at them, the thumbprint, the fingerprints are really not all the same, but they are the same.
Yeah.
There's creativeness to it. But with a modified, I mean, you could really be creative with what you were building because, the offset that you was allowed to put in them, the way the drivers, I mean, they were, left-handed cars as we call them. I mean,
Yeah.
with minimal body, I guess would be the way to say
Yeah.
it. I mean, there's a lot of focus when you're there racing, but I was like, this meet and greet, I'm going over and look at this car. I want to check this thing out.
Yeah, and those
Yeah.
modifiers and the gigantic tires that they ran. That was the one thing. The first when I first got to see NASCAR modifieds up close was at Wilkesboro at that race, and I was just amazed. One, amazed at the size of those tires. I'd always seen pictures, seen them on TV, but to see one up close, those gigantic tires they run, and man, they just don't crack the throttle. They just stand
Yeah.
on it all the way around at Wilkesboro. Those cars were just so. When I watched the modified race, I went all the way down to what was it? I went all the way down to the opening of pit road there at turn 4, and watched them come around and come by me going down the front stretch, and it was just, and they are just not. They're not cracking the throttle.
Right. I mean, it's amazing, the horsepower that those cars have, and
Gosh,
the,
those things
the when you see the tires on them, you're like, I think it's kind of like that old deal that Harry talked about in Days of Thunder about the
Oh
Indy
yeah,
car had a tire this wide, and the stock car's got a tire, this
half as
wide.
wide.
The tires were twice as wide and the car weighed half as much. Now your car weighs twice as much and the tires are half as wide.
Yeah.
Tearing them up.
Yeah. It's really weird, we lost Richie in '85 at Martinsville, and then Charlie got killed over there Charlie Jazamba got killed there in '86. And it was, that was really a sad moment, to know that two people that were really, really great drivers, lost their life at that racetrack.
Yeah, they did a lot of stuff to those modifieds, like after those wrecks, and there was a couple more in like the later '80s. I remember when they did a change to the modifieds, the down bars going to where the frame would kick up, and how the down bar came down. They created a more of a crush zone, and how they re-angled the down bar on the modifieds. I remember this write up in Circle Track magazine, so that it had a crush zone, because what was killing these guys, basically like what killed Dale Earnhardt, was that sudden stop, and you
Right.
break it right there.
Yeah.
I think that's what killed Richie Evans, was the basal skull fracture.
It was. I think him and Charlie both had,
Yeah.
basal skull fractures. And I mean, I've been told people that were there saw Richie wreck. I've always been told that the booster broke off the carburetor and fell down and hung the thing wide open.
Oh God.
That's the reason now we have to safety wire the boosters, so if they do break, they don't make it down into the butterflies.
Okay. Yeah. Oh gosh, that would be.
Yeah, but they said that car at the end of the straightaway, it's like he never, almost kind of like what Ross Chastain done, except for, when them tires bit in, like you said, it come to a stop.
Yeah. You do this for a while with Ronnie Newman, and then I come along, I leave. About the time, I think, well, I went on to do other things, because that was the end of the '92 season. In '93, I went to go work with another race team. And I can't remember at that point in time, were you staying with Ronnie Newman in the '93 season?
I did. And I think the reason,
I don't.
best that I can remember, we
did.
went to Frank.
But you guys didn't race at New Valley Speedway. You stayed at Franklin County.
We did, and I think that was the reason. Because I mean, for you, it's quite a drive from there,
Right.
and I think that's the reason you were helping some people up there, is because we were planning on racing.
Right, because I was right next to New River Valley in Radford, so
Right.
I got got to know a lot of the drivers, and what was great is the wonderful opportunity of being able to work at Dennis's shop, and we were right there, and a lot of the race cars would come, and me being the alignment tech, that's how I got to meet everybody, and I was spending my Saturdays bringing race cars onto the alignment machine, and then we would put the name of the service center on the Fairlawn Service Center on the cars. So I'd set them up every week, and that was fun. It got me great opportunity to touch a lot of race cars. But then going and then getting involved, one of the guys, Mike Marion asked me to crew chief for him, and that was a wonderful experience. But for you later on, I come back here, we lose a little touch, but you went on and continued forward with your NASCAR career.
Yes.
While you still building models.
Yes.
Which, real quick, before we get on to that, let's go back to models now. We've established all that and what inspired you. And the one thing is where we first met was when I came out to Virginia. I was friends with Mark Agee. I came out for a visit, went to one of the model meetings where I met you. I met everybody that night, and we all hung out at the Pizza Hut afterwards. But because Mark used to tell me about you were going to be something in NASCAR. He said that to me. He said, but he's like down in Franklin County working with this late model guy. If he could just get away from that and go on farther, he's a talented kid, but he builds models too. And then I met you at the meeting, and just kind of was cool because okay, you're doing something I want to do. Why I'm coming out there, but we build model cars, man.
Right. So I'm building the models. And, I'm basically buying what you can find in the hobby shop.
Right.
Crossroads Hobbies was still in Crossroads Mall. This was 1986. Went out there in the front window. There sits this Dave Marcus car.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I'm like, asked Ronnie Black, I was like, hey, can you buy that? No, it belongs to one of my customers. He sells decals. Oh, you can get other decals. Yeah. Okay. It was a Pontiac. It was a 2+2. It was one of Mark had built J&J's conversion kit.
Right.
And so he gives me Mark Agee's number, and I call him and talk to him and find out he lives up in Salem. And I'd like to buy some decals from you. He's telling me, yeah, I got decals for sale. And so we go up to it. He was still living at his mom and dad's. That's how long ago it was.
Yeah.
And he sells me some decals. He sells me. I think I bought one of the conversion kits. I wasn't skilled enough then to even attempt that thing.
Who was, man? I botched a couple of them.
Yeah, I mean the nose I could put on, but the trunk, the trunk area and cutting all that out.
Nightmare.
Yeah, it was. It was. But,
thank goodness Salvino JR Models came out with the kit.
Yes. I mean, when that one come out, I was like, oh my gosh, I've been waiting on this one for 30 years.
Yeah.
So I bought some J&J decals from him, so I could build some stuff that I thought was cool, and kind of made a friend there. And he would tell me about some stuff that was coming out. I know he was big in with Jack and John from J&J, and they would come out here. He started telling me about they were going to do this model group club,
right?
And this is when I first met Dennis Smith,
the boss. I always call him.
Yeah, the boss.
The boss.
And he says we're going to have the first one downtown at the library.
Mm-hmm.
Like, all right. And he said, tell me what night it was. And I was like, okay. So first one, it was just me, him, and Dennis.
Really?
Upstairs they had little areas that you could, use for conferences or whatever at the library in downtown Roanoke. And I think we had the first two there, maybe the first 2 or 3. It's been so long ago now. And they were monthly. It's kind of funny. Ronnie Black had told him, by this time, no, we must have had him there for a while, because Ronnie didn't move out of Crossroads until almost into the 90s.
Yeah. By the time he was at the last location that just recently closed in Salem.
Yeah, up in Salem.
I got out there in '92.
Yeah, that's the one. Because I think the first night I met you, I think we were at his place.
No, we were at Ray Denny's hobby shop. I can't remember.
Oh.
I vaguely remember where that was at, but that was at Ray Denny's.
Okay, yeah, because it was funny, because Ronnie offered us to do the meetings back there in the little room in his little craft room or however where he had his little classes and stuff.
Yeah.
And that was a
Neat
cool
little
little
room.
deal. Yeah, because it was cozy back there. You know, it had
was.
tables.
Had a
We could have our
couch.
contests, have the meetings, and
Yeah, I don't know if you ever came to it, but Dennis and I started a club for a while. We met back there. It was called the Ridge Runners of Southwest Virginia.
yes, I did. I came to a couple.
Did you come to
See,
those?
and about that time was when I was really busy with the racing.
You
and
were,
didn't
yeah.
get-
When I got out there, you were, yeah. Things were going pretty hectic for you on that.
Yeah, I didn't get to come to the meetings like I did, you know, once I got heavily involved with the racing. But I still remember we started out
Oh,
there
and kicking around in that 5.0 Thunderbird.
Yeah, well, you know, see, that was the other thing. For the longest time, I didn't have a license. I wasn't old enough to have a license. Mark would come get me and take me to the meetings.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, he would actually. Which his first house was probably when him and Libby got married. They were probably it was probably 5 miles away from where I lived.
Yeah, that was the one that was more towards like um, kind of the northwestern part of Roanoke.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And see, we
that's where he was living when I came out there.
right. We you know, like the main drag that was right off of his.
Right.
That's what we lived on up on the other end, up closer
I think
to.
I've been to your house. I can't remember that. I seem to recall that I had either been by there or been to your house.
I
back then.
think
Remember
y'all
you-
stopped and picked me up one time.
Probably. I know my
Yeah.
introduction to you was that night that I was in town for the visit to see if I wanted to move there, and I went to the model meeting, and this rumbling 5.0, what was it, an 84, 85 Thunderbird?
86 Thunderbird.
Here comes little Bill Elliott. And
Yeah.
that's Scotty. I told you about Scotty. That's how I met you.
Yeah. That was the Thunder man. I tell you, I missed the Thunderbird. You know,
Oh,
that was
gosh, yeah.
but yeah, but you know, it's kind of funny. We were at Ronnie's and we were doing
Yeah.
the meetings there, and Ray Denny, man. I mean, he was, you know,
He
you
was,
met Ray.
he was a character.
He was.
He was a character.
You know,
You could love him, you could hate him.
Yeah,
I
mean,
liked
but,
him and couldn't stand him.
Yeah, I mean, but if it was model, I mean, can you imagine now if he was alive and he had a podcast?
Oh,
I mean,
my goodness.
his knowledge that he had seen of the hobby.
I had wonderful conversations with him.
Yeah.
I know that it's a few times he had some meetings like at his house. He had this man cave downstairs. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Yeah. I
With
bought a lot of
showcases.
kits from him.
Yes, and showcases built in the wall of nothing but kits, and I mean it was his little room back there where he had all the junk parts
Yeah.
was just, you know,
Oh,
overwhelming.
Yeah, we go back there. I bought a bag of old MPC, just parts, cars and pieces, and all the MPC Lagunas and Chevelles and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I still have that Ziploc bag with those in it.
He realized that we were having the meeting at Ronnie's, and after the meeting, we were going out there and buying stuff.
Yeah.
And he decided these meetings need to be at the collector's box. So after the meetings, these guys and you know there was a I think at first we wound up we were going to alternate. We were going to do it Crossroads Hobby one month and collector's box the next.
Right.
I remember there was I'm going to use a word I used. There was quite the debacle in where we were going to have the meetings. It became quite a subject, but I know why now, because the amount of, you know, once again, like I said, I mean, we were all buying something, you know, whether it was a kit, whether it was paint.
Oh yeah. Oh well, it was a way to, you know, because whatever hobby shop, you know, you should always do that when you have your model meetings at a hobby shop. When they give you a place to meet and not charge you, is you want to show patronage to them.
Right.
Always buy from them. But
Yeah.
yeah, that was. I could see where he was leaning it towards that. And now, one thing about this club we didn't mention the fact this was strictly only stock car racing models.
Right, and that was what Mark, when he first started it, he told me, he said,
Oh,
this
he had
is
a. I used to get out here in Phoenix. That's how I got to know Mark. Was I joined up with the club through? I got the newsletter. I got the monthly newsletter.
right.
That's why
Yeah.
I was able to come out there with a model to that meeting and beat all of you guys with it. Remember, I won.
Yes. Yes, you did. Yeah.
I
Well,
I was a the Pembroke Oldsmobile of Bobby Labonte's.
mhm.
I built it to bring it out there, and I gave it as a gift to. I wonder if Mark still has it. I gave it to him.
I'm sure,
I'm sure he did.
it's kind of funny, I only won one of those and you got to remember, I'm a
I
kid.
shouldn't
I
have.
mean,
I shouldn't have won. I could tell you a secret about that real quick. You couldn't put the hood down on it. I had the carburetor. I did like a special. I did a resin carburetor or something, different carburetor on it. Detail it out. Had the a removable air filter. You put the air
mhm.
filter and carburetor on. They were too high. You put the hood down. It would probably stay. But don't tell
Yeah.
anybody. I don't want my trophy taken back.
It's so funny. A lot of my kits now, when I build them,
Yeah.
I glue the hood. I just go
Yeah.
ahead and usually if I'm going to show somebody the interior or the chassis, I just take the body off and do a side by side
Yeah.
because you can see so much detail.
Well, they did do such a great job with everything on that chassis.
Yes, they
So
did.
accurate, and they're so
Mm.
accurate.
And that's why once I got more familiar with, I seen how they glued together, but I also seen when you did put them together, how certain parts of it, it's kind of like on the on the door bar sides.
Yeah.
You know, that filler piece on the rear that goes to the wheel tubs, and the piece that actually goes out there to make the foot box or the dash. I mean, that's actually sheet metal. It's put on after you build the cage.
Right.
It's part of the tin. It's part of the tin work.
Let me ask you something, if you've noticed this though, about on the GM cars, which was the Laughlin front steer chassis. There's one screw up about it that I notice is it only has three. But it's not. It only has 3 door bars. The Banjo Matthews that came in the Fords has 4, which was NASCAR legal. They had to have 4. You have to have 4 door
Bars.
bars, not 3. But if you look closely, the way they did it, the 4th bar is actually kind of a part of that piece that slides and it goes onto the chair. So it's there, but
But it's straight.
yeah, they kind of
Yeah,
fudged a little there.
yeah.
It always bugged me that there was only 3 door because I'm insane about that stuff. So it always nobody cares. How many model builders even realize that? But hey, that's against that's against NASCAR.
Well, but it's funny because it's just like those chassis when you look at them.
Yeah.
The door bars, the right side door bars and the left side door bars both have a double kick to them.
Right.
So on a lot of the late model chassis that people are building now, on the right side door bars, they're only putting one kick in them,
Yeah.
and it's because to do what I call a double dog leg in them, that's a longer piece of tubing.
Right.
So if in theory, if you could build that right side with just straight door bars, you would be even better. But
Nowadays they can get away with it because the bodies are slab side. I mean, almost everything is flat.
right,
Back in the day when everything had that curvature to it.
yeah. But a lot of it is there is a whole lot of how much can you lighten these cars up. It's kind of like that conversation me and you had about Mark Martin talking about his car he won that pole with at Richmond in '81.
Mm-hmm.
He had 600 pounds of ballast in that car when most people had 3 or 350.
Right.
And I mean, as a racer now, I know that is a big deal to be able to get that much ballast in a car. And and that's something where I've heard this in different ways. You just don't pick up anything. When you pick something up that you're going to fabricate and make for one of these, you think about, there was a guy I worked with. He used the term, "What do you want to make this out of?" 030 nothing. It's like, okay, I see what you're saying. This, if we can, we're going to make this out of the lightest, flimsiest, and if it don't last but 2 races and it cracks, we'll make another one, for brackets and stuff like that. And when you get into to listening to people talk about building cars like that, I mean, that's what, just like Mark talks about taking his car and making it a 70-30 car instead of a 60-40 car. I mean, that's, once again, that's another big deal to making your car go, faster and turn better.
Oh, absolutely. That's what it's about. I come back here to Arizona, slash my dreams of making it into NASCAR. And we don't talk for quite a long time. Then when we get together a few years back, because Dennis told you who I was, and you were watching me, and you didn't realize I was Luka C.
Right.
And so he gave you my number. We just kind of started our friendship back up again, and I'll never forget. So I asked you, so you still involved in racing? Oh yeah, I'm the suspension specialist at Cullick Racing. Well, talk about a fork in the road. One goes that way, one goes the other. And I'm just like, oh man, if I would have stayed, you and I would have we were always palling around with all that stuff. But you had, as you told me to get me refreshed, you had quite the interesting career after you were with Ronnie Newman for a while, and you moved on to getting involved in other forms of NASCAR racing, going up and up and up. And there was something that happened in '95. We all know about what happened in '95 in NASCAR. There was this new division, and that was just opened up so many doors for everybody back east. And I came back here. Mark said to me, he goes, "Man, you moved away too soon." He goes, "If you stayed out here, all the big teams are starting truck teams, and they're hiring."
Yeah. I love the truck series from the get go. I thought, it was just the coolest thing in the world. And me and you've talked about it, in '85, Buck Baker's, I always call it Buck Baker's Truck Series. I don't really know what the true name of it was supposed to be.
I usually can rattle it off. It was the National Pickup Truck Racing Association.
Yes.
They tried to sell it to NASCAR, and they weren't interested back then. They didn't think trucks were a big deal.
But I know, Chubby Arrington, which is a longtime racer here in this area, from the Longwood restaurant. Chubby had a Dodge truck in 1985, for that series, and he was bringing it to Franklin County and racing it against the late model cars. I mean, I think I've seen some pictures of it. I'll be honest with you, I was fascinated by that truck then. And I was really, there was somebody else brought another truck over. I believe it was Bobby Fleming brought a truck over there too and raced it, which is the truck that was in the International Motorsports Hall of Fame in Talladega.
Up until about a week or two ago, the family got it.
Yes, I understand. I've learned I think the Fleming family has took it back.
Did you know? And I'm very honored to say that Bobby Fleming's daughter has joined our NASCAR modeling group.
Oh, okay. Well, okay.
Because there's been a lot of talk, and I did a little write-up about the trucks. Like, a lot of people don't realize, before the truck series, there was the National Pickup Truck Racing Association from Buck Baker, that it was just 2 or 3, and then they All-Pro, I think, the All-Pro series took it over after a year of it just being Buck Baker's show. And, and they ran it for 2 or 3 seasons, and Bobby Fleming was the first. He was the first one to win the championship in that red Chevrolet, or was it GMC? I can't remember. I think it was a Chevrolet. But
I believe it was a Chevrolet.
unrestored, that truck sat in Talladega for 33 years. I saw it a couple times. That's when I first discovered about these things. Was I saw Bobby Fleming's truck there. But and then when I went to Talladega while I was moving out there, and then when I moved out there, Mark had told me about Chubby's truck that's sitting out in front of the restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
And I always wanted to go over there and see it. Anyways, I did this write-up about that series that over on the Talladega or the International Motorsports Facebook group, they cut and pasted and put that over there when they did a posting about how Bobby Fleming's truck was going home to the family. And they did a big posting about it, and they reposted my write-up about the trucks. And that's how she saw what I was doing on the group, and it was pretty cool, man. That's what's so great about the internet is how it connects people and everything. Not a lot of people know about that series, and it was so cool. Buck Baker, he started it mainly to, something for his graduates to get involved, to kind of do racing. I guess they were only going to do it at Rockingham for a while.
Rockingham, yeah.
And that was like early 80s, so there was an abundance of 115-inch wheelbase chassis all over the place. So they were just modifying the roll cage so they could put pickup truck bodies on them.
Right, yeah. And once again, I wish back then I would have known more stuff to look at and questions to ask like I would now, as to, hey, it's like I remember asking Chubby's son, because that truck, like you said, sat out in front of the restaurant for a long time. And then Arnie said somebody bought it and done something with it. That's kind of, what I.
Well, that one, and that was unique because that truck was unique because it was a Dodge.
Right.
There wasn't a lot
that was what, my granddad, he had a Dodge, he had an 82 model Dodge pickup that he bought brand new. And I just always thought, looking at it, how much of that factory sheet metal was on that truck.
Because it was like an 80, 81, 82 Dodge.
Yeah. Square headlight Dodge truck.
Dodge truck, stuff like that. But it was a beautiful truck. I always loved Chubby's paint, that yellow and black, and Paul Radford driving that thing.
It was so funny because worked with Arnie. I've worked with Arnie on several things and know Arnie really well. And one of the deals, a buddy of mine was asking Arnie. He said, "Do you chew?" And he says, "Yeah." He said, "What do you chew?" And he said, I think it was. He said Levi Garrett. He said because he said it comes in a yellow and black pouch.
There you go. So you ended up getting into the truck series. Still building models, right? You never stopped building
Right. That's when I met Larry Dunn. Larry Dunn was the team manager for that deal. I remember having several conversations with Larry, and he was glad that I was there helping. But I remember, too, when this deal went with Tony and him, I told him, I said, I think there's a lot better opportunity for me to learn to advance. They used to let us have a opening in the hood that was 2 by 22, I think is what it was, 2 by 20 or 2 by 22. Well, instead of making people buy new hoods, they let them cover it up. When these guys made their plate, they fixed it to where the front of it would open up and air would still go under the hood and help get better air to the carburetor. In my mind, I had aspirations of trying to go to work for a truck team and be working for one by about 97. And I was learning so much about working on those cars, and I was seeing that the opportunity was there. I was making a living doing it.
How cool is that to be working on getting paid to work on race cars? Yeah.
But I still remember, I brought that stuff back to the track. We put it in the car, run another practice. It's still throwing water out of it. We went to Gateway, was our first standalone event. We pitted the thing first for the first time, and we did okay. We had some hiccups, but it was our first deal. When the caution come out, I wanted to pick the fuel can up and be sitting on the wall with it. That was the biggest mistake I ever made. Because when you do two cans, when you see the rear tire hanger come up, you want to have your catch can man have possession of the can, and you're going back for the second can. He said, we did not come here to finish second. We come here to win.
Oh.
And that's the only thing we will do. Do you understand? Yes, sir. Wanting to do good, and when we didn't do good, taking it personal. And it was kind of funny because my wife, since we had been married and she had been around me, I had worked in the shop and didn't really get quite that, upset about it. And we go to the racetrack and start racing with Michael, and she had really a tough time understanding how I could come home so mad about something, but couldn't wait to go do it again next week.